So I'm just going to do some introductions. So my name is Kennedy Coles. I am an advisory teacher from Access to Inclusion team, and I was part of the original steering group for the school age graduated response tool, and as part of the steering group for the early years version as well. And alongside me today, I have Jo McDonough. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, Jo McDonough. I'm one of the early years area Senkos.
And Jo's been part of the steering group as we've gone on through. Okay, so thank you for joining today's webinar. In order for it to run smoothly, as I've said, your microphones and cameras are set off. The purpose of this webinar is as an information session, and as such, the chat function, as I said a minute ago, is not available. PowerPoint slides and a recording of this webinar will be available on the local offer following these events. If in the unlikely event you have technical issues, please can you leave and then rejoin again, and failing that, contact Access to Inclusion at somerset.gov.uk, where they should be able to help you. Although we've allowed 90 minutes for this webinar, it may and probably will finish slightly earlier, and this will give you an opportunity to look through the tool and any accompanying documents offline. Invites to join this webinar have been sent to early years settings, to governors, support services, governor services, and health and social care professionals and colleagues. And I can see that we've got a broad range of those invited joining us today, so welcome. So that you are aware, we have separate webinar sessions running for parent carers in October, and we will have more information regarding this at the end. Both myself and Jo are now going to turn our cameras off so that the event will run nice and smoothly. Okay. So the aims of the session today. So we're here today to develop an understanding of why and how the Somerset Graduate Response Tool Early Years version has been created. And we're here to give you a tour of the document. We will be looking at how this document will support your role, whatever that is, and also we will have a look at the supporting resources available. This will include checklists, templates, and other things that, as a professional, may be useful to yourselves. And also, we're going to be updating you on what's next for the document. Let's start with an explanation of what the Somerset Graduate Response Tool is and its purpose. So the tool has been designed to be a working document that replaces the old core standards, and it sets out a guide of what should be ordinarily available for our children in our settings. It provides guidance so that our children can get the right support at the right time. So where will I find Somerset Graduated Response Tool Early Years version? So Somerset Graduated Response Tool sits within our local offer. There is a direct link to it on the slide here in the green box, but feel free to click on the screen where you'll find the tool accompanying documents and a PowerPoint slides for the webinar when they're up there. If you're not aware of Somerset's local offer website, it's really important to have a look at it because it aims to provide clear, comprehensive, accessible and up-to-date information about the available provision and how to access it. It explains how decisions are made and who by. Within it, it sets out clear pathways for action and directions about what to do and where to go if you have concerns. The area is becoming so well used that if you type Somerset Graduated Response Tool into your search engine, it does come up with a page as one of the suggestions. Our suggestion will be that once you get to the page that we're looking at today, that you save the link to the Somerset Graduated Response Tool and the accompanying documents as a favourite rather than downloading as a document. That way you'll ensure you have the most up-to-date version. If, however, you haven't used the direct link, you can type in Somerset's local offer into your search engine. And from there, you will find the website. You will then see the screen shown on the left-hand side of the screen here. From Somerset's local offer, if you click on the education tile, it will take you to the next screen, which you can see on the visual here. From there, you will see the fourth box, which you will see a link to a page called What to Expect from Education page. This is the area where the Somerset Graduated Response Tool will sit. When you get to that page, the image you can see on the right is what you will see. Alternately, as I said before, you can also access this page directly by typing Somerset Graduated Response Tool into your search engine and by clicking on the What to Expect from Education Somerset link. You'll see that on the left-hand side here. Again, I've put a link on this page, and it'd be helpful for you to save this link to your favourites bar, as I've already suggested. This is what the page will look like here on the right. You will see that there's a copy of the whole tool. Okay. And here is underlined for the earliest version. There is obviously the school age version, but the earliest version is what we're here to discuss today. There are also a number of supporting documents which we'll be talking you through about today in the webinar, which sit below this on the web page. So let's start with a recap of the rationale around the redevelopment of what were the core standards. The key elements of the rationale are that there was a need for a co-produced guide for the graduated response to special educational needs in Somerset and to provide guidance on the types of support that should be ordinarily available for our children. There was a need for the document that was created by and accessible to all stakeholders. There was a need to improve consistency of the support and provision for Somerset children and young people, and also to ensure that there was a consistency and clear graduated response for parent, carers, early years settings and professionals that aligns with the school age version. We want to provide you with a bit of a context of how we arrived at this final document. Initially, following the launch of the school age version, a steering group was set up with representatives from the learning support team, myself and my colleague Jo, who's not here today, the early years Senko team, Joe McDonnell and team, and Joe's here with me today, statutory SEN team, parent care forum, educational psychology service, health representatives, and a Senko from early years setting. The aim was to outline a time frame and task at each stage of the redevelopment. There are representatives from all stakeholders to ensure that there's co-production at every stage. Following that, the second stage, the steering group set up 4 working groups for each board area of need. And their aim was to write the content for the quick checkers and board areas of need tables, which we'll discuss later on. Representatives from the steering group were present at each working group alongside representatives from Parent Care Forum, Educational Psychology Service, early years Senkos, and the expertise from service team professionals linked to the board area of need. For example, speech and language therapy, health colleagues, and advisory teachers from the Autism and Communication team for the Communication and Interaction Working Group. A draft document that was then created using the framework created through the development of the school age version and amendments that were made to that, and with the changes that we were making to improve the document following the local authority re-inspection. We had noted that there was a need to provide more information on assessment and supporting screeners as an integral part of the document. We also used information from the guidance that's already in place around the standards in early years settings. Following the creation of this draft document, a public consultation took place for all stakeholders, where people were able to give their feedback on what they found about the document. Following this consultation, the working groups met to make edits collaboratively to the content based on any feedback we had from the public consultation. A rough cut was then sent to the communications team and to check for accessibility, clarity and presentation before the final document has been published and live on the local offer. Okay, so both myself and Jo will show you how to use different sections of the Somerset Graduated Response tool later in the webinar when we take you through a tour of the tool. So how might the document help with your role? If you're a key adult working in an early years setting with a young person, there are checklists to support your thinking before discussion with either parent carers and or SENCOs. If you're a setting, but there is specific guidance for how to support in the setting at a universal and SEND support level. If you're a parent carer, social worker, health colleague, then there is guidance around what might be in place to support in settings and have an understanding of the graduated response to SEND. Our advisory teachers are able to use it to signpost settings, parent carers and other colleagues to what might be available in settings, e.g. through discussions within the setting and in their reports. Our statutory SEND team are also going to be able to use it to signpost settings, parent carers and other colleagues to what might be and should be available at universal and SEND support level of need. Throughout the document, please look for the universal support icon. Here you can see in the pink box, we've used an image of the world with its circles going around, so it's universal and envelops everyone. SEND support, you can see a little image of 3 people. And in the blue box, it talks about the hyperlinks to range resources. Anything within the document that is underlined will be hyperlinked either within the document to another page or externally to other resources that will be useful. So let's have a look at the Somerset Graduate Response tool. So you can put some of the information that I've talked about around how it will be support your role into a bit of context. The contents page on page 2 of the document is shown here. You may not want to read it cover to cover, and you're unlikely to need to, as it's designed to be a tool to use rather than a document to read and put away. You will notice that there are several guidance pages towards the beginning of the document which briefly cover areas such as defining the graduated response and the assess plan do cycles, expectations of various key roles within settings, information about EHCPs and funding for SEND. And these are brief overviews that should support you in using and understanding the tool. Where there are more detailed documents available, such as Somerset's effective support document for SEND, we have hyperlinked them within the relevant page. You can see here on the contents page, on the right-hand side, we have a number of key links to documents that are important. There's also a glossary at the beginning, which will help with the numerous acronyms that are used in the worlds of education and SEN. The contents page is linked to the relevant page within the document so that you can click on it and it will take you directly to the relevant page. So I'm going to highlight to you a couple of the introductory pages to support your understanding of how to use the tool. These pages will be particularly helpful in supporting understanding of what a graduated response looks like in practice, as well as giving an understanding of how the assess plan do review process fits within the graduated response to special educational needs. Pages 9 and 10 of the tool are also helpful to look at prior to the main board areas of need sections in order to support your understanding of how the detail of the barriers and strategies listed fits into the bigger picture and the bigger processes around support for children and young people with SEND. So the pyramid diagram here shows that the graduated response is a cumulative process in that provision is put in at a universal level. Then if SEND support is added and if required, higher needs funding or an educational health and care plan needs assessment could be requested with additional high needs funding. It is important that graduated response is followed if we are to effectively and in a timely manner identify and remove barriers for our children in order that they can thrive. We will discuss the resources available to support you as you follow this graduated response as we go through this webinar. Page 10 of the tool covers the detail of the assess plan do review process. This is referred to in the code of practice within the SEND support level of SEND. We have decided to include the start point as universal support. As I've already mentioned, this is the foundation of all the support. The arrows guide you through to the assess plan do and review process for SEND support. By way of example, if there's a possible SEN concern, the universal support should be tried first. Where this does not have the desired impact on progress, the child would then move through into SEN support, which requires that assess plan do review process. Whatever your role in relation to children and young people, it's really important that you are clear on the graduated response to SEN, as you are likely to be able to positively contribute to the information required to make a graduated response to SEN successful in meeting needs. I'd also like to draw your attention to the arrows that show that there is a way out of the SEN support APDR cycle. This is really important, as at every review, whether there is a need to remain at SEN support should be really considered to avoid children becoming unnecessarily stuck on the SEN lists or being identified as having SEN. We have provided template documents to support the recording of support at both universal and SEN support, and we will guide you through these later in the webinar. So this pyramid on page 11 is designed to show you the types of assessments and processes that we'd expect to see at different stages of need. This is not an exhaustive list, but gives a number of screeners and assessments. However, if you have an assessment that you use and it is a recognised assessment, then please continue to do so. You can feed this back to us through the feedback form that I will mention later, and we will then may be able to add it to the document when we review it. I'd also like to highlight that if a child has a plan, it does not mean that assessments from the universal section cannot be used. In fact, it's important that monitoring tools such as the Early Years Developmental Journal and what to expect in the early years foundation stage should, where appropriate, continue to be used to assess and track need. So I'm going to introduce the quick checkers for you. These quick checkers are guidance tools and are not a comprehensive or a diagnostic tool. They could be used to stimulate and organise or categorise initial concerns into the 4 broad areas of SEN. For example, where a child isn't making progress and there is possibility this is due to a special educational need, you would then use the quick checkers to see if you can identify what that may be. The quick checkers are colour coded by broad area of need, and these colours are consistent throughout the document. This will support your navigation through it. The quick checkers were written as part of the working group. Children may cross over several of the 4 broad areas of need, but what the quick checker may help with is which of the 4 broad areas of need to look at for more detail around barriers and strategies, which appears later in the document. The quick checker is also available as a standalone tool on the local offer webpage, as it might be useful to pass to key adults working with a child as part of the universal and initial concerns stage of the graduated response. This is the first step of the graduated response and can support you to inform outcomes for a child within your setting that you're working with. I'm going to now hand you over to Jo, who will tell you a little bit more about the document and also some of the supporting documents.
Thank you, Kennedy. Okay, so as you've probably seen just now, the main part of this tool is organised into the 4 broad areas of need as defined in the SEN Code of Practice. So you've got a section on cognition and learning, communication interaction, sensory physical, and social emotional mental health. So this is the section that which you really use to support your work with children. You'll notice that each of the 4 broad areas of need sections is introduced at the start with a definition of what that area of SEN from the Code of Practice is, as well as quotations from Somerset children and young people about their experiences of being a child or young person in Somerset with additional needs. So that starts it off. So first we're going to get into how to use this tool at a universal level. You'll notice that the sections are again colour-coded in line with the colours in the quick checkers, and we've used icons to support guiding as to whether you're in the universal or the SEN support sections. So this slide shows an extract of the universal section for cognition and learning, and the table will be used to support identifying barriers, completing assessments, and support strategies that could be used within the setting at that universal level of support. You can see lots of detail in there. So this will help with identification of needs, but also really help with discussions and decisions around which strategies to try where the barriers have been identified. So whilst the information here has been created by working with professionals within the broad area of need, SENCOs and parent carers, again, it's not an entirely exhaustive list of strategies and provisions that would be ordinarily used with children. So we appreciate that some settings you might be using good evidence-based resources and provisions already. And if they're not on here, we'd encourage you to continue using them, but also to let us know, and we may add them when we review the document. So in practice, a scenario could be there's a concern about a child who may have a special educational need around taking on new information and not making progress. So this is highlighted perhaps by the key adult, the parent, the child, or another professional. And then the key adult might use the quick checkers and look at this cognition learning universal broad area section to pin down specific barriers such as information processing as shown here. The key adult could then look at the tools for identification by following the underlined hyperlinks and try some of the suggestions within the strategies provision at universal level. Again, this universal section is available on a separate document that can be edited by key adults if you want to annotate it or record any strategies used. So we'll cover that later. Okay, here's another extract, and this is from the social, emotional, mental health universal section. So the colours have changed, but it will be used in much the same way as the cognition learning section to support you to identify the barriers, with the strategies listed there that could be put in place by the setting at the universal level as well. Again, you'll notice there are links to resources that might be helpful in each of the sections. Okay, so once you've tried things from the section with the universal, if you still feel the child needs further support, you'd move into the SEN support section. So again, colour coded in line with the colours from the quick checkers. And you'll notice though that the SEN support icon and banner down the side of the document is there to signpost you. So it's changed from the universal to SEN support. You'll also notice it looks slightly different than the tables missing the barriers column, as the barriers will look the same at both universal and SEN support levels, but it will be the strategies used that will look different. So it's important to note that the universal strategies should remain in place, but the further SEN support strategies will build on and be an additional to those universal strategies. It doesn't mean you stop doing everything you were doing before, you would just do some additional things from the SEN support section as well. So it's really important to embed the strategies and give them time to be effectively implemented and tried before reviewing as well. So this information will be able to evidence a persistent difficulty because over a period of time, you continue to need a higher level of support. So where limited progress is made with universal, you'd make further assessment of the barriers, and then you'll use that to inform the strategies at both universal and SEN support that should be put in place. So it's really, really important that the progress is monitored through successive APDR cycles. So for instance, despite the universal strategies to support a child with visual impairment, for example, you still have concerns. So then you would use the tool on page 57 to look at additional strategies that may be needed, such as specialist equipment or other adaptations to the physical and sensory environment. Okay, some further signposts in the document, and this is at the end of each broad area of need, and it signposts to a range of key documents, training, further reading, resources, and professional organisations that can support with further advice. And this is an example here from the communications section. So you can see there's lots of resources there with hyperlinks. The signposting was developed through the working groups, the steering groups, and public consultation feedback. And hopefully the hyperlinks will be helpful. If you do come across a broken link though, please do let us know so that we can hopefully fix it. And again, if you have some information or you think there's something missing from there, do let us know and we may be able to include it in the review. Okay, here's some more here. Lots and lots of signposting if needed. Okay, in addition to this, as Candy mentioned earlier, there are also some supporting documents to help you. And we're going to have a little look at them now. So These have been created to help you with recording and sharing the graduated response to SEN. It's really important. So it's really helpful for all our work with children to be aware of the type of paper that might be used to record that graduated response to SEN. The supporting documents sit below the main documents. So you can see that here on the right-hand side where you can access them. So the original launch event information is for the school age launch, but the PowerPoint and the recording of this event will be added to there once we've completed this today. The process map and the flowchart are also sitting here, and I'll look at those in more detail in a moment. And underneath it sit many other documents that will support you with a graduated response. So the quick checkers, there's a drop down there for you to click to reveal the ones you need. And obviously you'll be looking for the early years ones. And there'll be more editable versions going onto there soon as well. Again, with the universal barriers and strategies records and a one-page profile sitting within the pupil passport templates, you'll see the same. It's worth noting that some of the templates are in Microsoft Publisher and will need to be downloaded to open and edit them. And there are also templates that can be added in any way that you might see fit to suit the pupil and the parent needs. We've also provided PDF and read-only versions as well if you needed those. And we're working on developing formats that are more widely accessible for all users, such as a text-only version. So within the supporting documents, we've got a flowchart and a process map. So these documents show similar process we use to support understanding the actions that you'll be taking within the graduated response. You'll notice they're colour-coded in line with the universal SEN support and high needs level in the pyramid that we showed you earlier. And it really is just a step-by-step guide to exactly what might happen at each stage of the graduated response to make it really clear. You might have something similar in place to support your staff in understanding what happens when and who does what in the graduated response already. It is designed to be editable and act as a template that can be used or adapted, so you will be able to change it to suit your needs. Quote here from the Code of Practice, and just to remind you that for most children or young people where there's a concern, the setting should work through a graduated response to ensure the relevant and personable action to identify, assess and meet the special educational needs of the child or young person has been taken. So that graduated response really underpins everything within the Code of Practice. It's really important to have clear documentation for that. So some other supporting documents. This is the process map in a little bit more detail, and you can use that to help you to work through the actions so you've got that really robust and clear graduated response as well. Okay, this is the strategies record, if you wanted to record that. It's an editable template that might be used to record and review the identification of need and the strategies tried at the universal level. So it's also a useful record for the key adult to look at impact on progress, and it will record the strategies tried as well as give you the opportunity to review them. It could also support in building a specific and clear picture of needs and strategies that support the child. So where strategies have been tried but there's little impact, this record might help in understanding where further assessment of needs is required and therefore which strategies might be useful at SEN support level. So it's your first record. And this document will follow on from the quick checkers and form part of the early stages of the graduated response. Okay, we've also included a one-page profile. This might look familiar to you. So this template can be used or adapted by your setting to capture key information about the child, such as their likes and dislikes, their strengths and barriers, as well as suggested support strategies. It could be used at universal and SEN support level, and you might already have an equivalent in place. So it's not suggested that you change to this version, but if you think it's a template you like to use and edit, it is there for you. It's quite useful for parents, carers and colleagues from outside of settings also to use this, so they've got an awareness of the types of documents and their purpose as their opportunities to share the key information with all staff that work with the child or young person. So the information you put in here could be informed by the quick checkers or the universal barriers and strategies record, as well as information that you get from your setting themselves, the child, parents, carers, or information that comes from external professionals. It's designed to be a snapshot of that child, but enables those working with them to have a basic understanding of them in order to effectively support them, because all the information is just on the one page. Okay, let's have a think about the assess, plan, do, review process then. There's an example here. Again, it's an editable template to help you record the APDR process. Its purpose is to plan, monitor, and review the support that's needed for children SEN support. So the key is that the information here should be really specific. So there should be specific barriers or needs noted and specific evidence-based strategies to support noted in this document. Somerset Graduated Response Tool Broad Areas of Need section will support in identifying those specific barriers and strategies. So hopefully you would refer to that to help you to complete this document. So you could use or adapt this, and you'll notice that it doesn't contain the same information as a one-page profile. So it's often helpful to have both. So you've got your detail of what you're doing here, and then you've got your overview for people if they need to quickly know what the needs of the child and how they're being supported. So it's also important to note they're not in place for the whole of a child's education. So obviously these always have an end date for review, and you might then, as Kennedy showed you earlier, move back to more universal support if your support has been successful, or you might need to create a new plan and continue that APDR cycle. So again, you'll be using the SEN support section to help you complete this. And this whole process is an essential part of the graduated response. So it's how you use the document, the tool, to help you to inform this documentation to help track the progress. It is really important to remember that parents and carers need to be involved throughout the process. So the Code of Practice does say that in identifying a child as needing SEN support, the early years practitioner working with the setting SENCO and the child's parents will carry out an analysis of the child's needs, and this initial assessment should be viewed regularly to ensure that support is matched to the need. And the Code of Practice states that parents' early observations of their child in this process is crucial. So the APDR template can really support settings to meet their requirements as part of the APDR process as referenced in the Code of Practice. Okay, I'll now hand you over to Kennedy, who will explain what we're working on next. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo. Okay, so to summarise, the supporting documents and the use, I've kind of simplified the process here. So firstly, step one, when you identify a young person who is starting to bubble, you're starting to have concerns with, then this is when we start looking at the quick checkers, and we have a look at the quick checkers to see if we can identify the area where there is a barrier or an area of need. So then next we have step two, where we look at the Somerset Graduated Response Tool, and then we also use that to identify relevant assessment tools that you will use to select the appropriate strategies and evidence-based provisions that you will use at a universal level. You can use the Universal Barriers and Strategies record and strategies recorded to show what you're using, when you've used it, any assessment data, and the start and end. And then from that, you would then be looking at step three, moving into the APDR cycle, which is an essential part of the graduated response at a SEN support level. Following this webinar, we'd like you to make sure that others within your setting are using and aware of the tool and the accompanying documents. If you are the SENCO, get your setting manager or head on board and share with them the Somerset Graduated Response Tool. We want you to use the document and make it part of your everyday practice within your setting. It is designed to be interactive and used by all, and will be regularly reviewed to ensure that it is up to date and current. It's really important that we catch them early. The tool and the supporting documents will help you in your daily practice, supporting you with early identification and to remove barriers early so that our children and young people can thrive. So, as with the development process, we welcome your continued input and feedback for the Somerset Graduated Response Tool. As I've already mentioned several times, we want the tool to be a live working document, so we will use the feedback to inform updates. On the final page of the tool, there is a link to a feedback form where you can provide your feedback around the use of the tool. And we're looking for that feedback right from start all the way through. We will notify you when it's been updated, but please always keep a link to it on your desktop through the local offer so that you know you're working and looking at the latest version. So they're quite a hefty document, so I wouldn't recommend you necessarily download and print it off. You may, however, want to do that for the quick checkers and the Universal Barriers and Strategies record as part of the supporting documents. Okay, so there is more happening with this project as per the slide here. As a steering group, we're going to continue to work on the development of Somerset Graduated Response Tool, and we're going to continue to monitor and support the implementation of the documents and listen to the feedback we're given to continue to work to improve both the document and the resources and information available. We will be doing some work with parent carers on the early years version and school age version now the documents are live, and we hope that you can share the document with any parent carers that you're working with so that we have a good understanding across all people working with children and young people. We're currently working closely with Somerset Parent Care Forum for some events that we will let you know about in the future. As you can see on the screen here, we're also working for a version of the Post 16, looking at leaflets and videos, and we've just completed the updates for the school age version as well. So to finish, it's really important this document is used by us all to support and inform our work and our practice with children and young people, so that we ensure that there is a consistent and high quality support for all children in Somerset. It should inform conversations, meetings and decision making within all our roles around children's education. Now that it's live, please use it, share it and get it out there. This PowerPoint will be available on the local offer shortly, along with a recording of the webinars, which you might like to share with your colleagues. Please replace any references to Somerset core standards with the Somerset Graduated Response Tool. The link on the local offer remains the same and easy to access. Finally, thank you for joining the webinar today, and we really look forward to seeing the tool in use and supporting you within your role. You may have some time now to have a look at the tool and supporting documents.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. The session is now finished, so you are welcome to leave and go from there. Thank you for your support and attending today.